Hello, I'm Professor Howard Williams of the Department of History and Archaeology at the University of Chester. Now, as part of my undergraduate and master's teaching, I cover the issues of death, memory, and monumentality, including public art statuary in the contemporary and historic landscape, as well as my work on the Middle Ages and of prehistoric and Roman period monuments and memory. So when the Black Lives Matter movement was gathering pace earlier this year, following tragic circumstances in the United States, it was an opportunity in a moment, and I didn't know where it was going, and I felt, should I be quiet or should I make some kind of commentary on what is going on in our how the manifestations on the British landscape might be far-reaching and deep. And seeing how things have manifested in recent weeks and months, I'm not so sure I should have said anything at all, but I did give it a go. And so I would like to point out that I did, back in the summer, in June, I recorded a YouTube video that was built off my ArchaeoDeath TikTok account, where I did some short videos about the Topple the Racists as a campaign, and then I put them together as a YouTube video on my ArchaeoDeath vlog, because I'd already addressed on my longer standing, since 2013, WordPress academic blog the topic of Eli Yale's tomb in Wrexham, and his self-aggrandizement, and the broader context of the town of Wrexham's commemoration of Yale as a great Welsh American, and the tomb in the churchyard of St Giles as a focus of commemoration, not only of him himself but of Yale University. And so I thought I'd follow that up as a case study. So here's my write-up on my blog about that case study of Topple the Racists, Eli Yale. And I was aware that the website for Topple the Racists had listed, as is a crowdsourced website with allowing the British public to identify monuments, signs, place names and statues and other kinds of monuments that were perhaps in the light of our attempts to decolonise our landscape, to rethink what we value and as a nation and as communities in our landscape, that should be subject to critical reappraisal and perhaps removal. And so the website takes on board an existing petition that is far older, goes back to 2017, but actually was re-energized in the early part of this year, to have the Wetherspoons sign of the Eli Yale changed to some alternative, to Old Man Spoons. Now, it doesn't matter really what you change it to, but the point is that there are plenty of alternatives than the Eli Yale name. And in my video and blog, I explore the evidence that Eli Yale was a slaver, and his obscene fortune was largely gathered through his work in slavery, and yet the official records and the way he's remembered make scant reference of that. So in the context of this presentation, which I've called Yale and Offa, I want to explore the broader challenge of revisiting, reflecting, re-evaluating the legacy of monuments and memory in the Anglo-Welsh borderlands, and the distinctive colonial legacies that are both ancient and more recent of this landscape. And Yale and Offa perhaps encapsulate so much about the Anglo-Welsh borderlands that at one level seems cannot be tackled, I would contend, in a simplistic and monofaceted way. We need to think about the way in which the landscape and the heritage of the Anglo-Welsh borderlands is presented and commemorated. And I think in that regard, there's been no concerted efforts, both from a Welsh perspective or from an English perspective. There's been no coherent attempt to evaluate the borderlands landscape. And if we're going to make not simply about toppling individual monuments or removing particular aspects of that are problematic, or recontextualising them from Stanley's statues in St Asaph and Denbigh through to Eli Yale in Wrexham. We have to think much broader about the broader landscape of Edwardian castles and of Offa's Dyke as in some ways also a colonial monument in some regards. So for Wrexham itself, Eli Yale is simply part of a broader fabric of commemoration involving industry, steelworks, mining, Acton estate with its iconic gatehouses with greyhounds, the Gresford mining disaster, and the Bronze Age ancestor of the area, Brumbo Man, who's commemorated in a rather disturbing looking sculpted head sitting outside of Wrexham Museum. We also have the nearby National Trust property of Erddig Hall, home of the York family historically, and a very popular National Trust visitor centre that intersects with the story of both Offa and Yale. So here we have St Giles with Yale's tomb, with the famous inscription, born in America, in Europe bred, in Africa travelled, and Asia wed, etc., etc., commemorating his legacy. And it still is a major focus outside the tower, the distinctive tower of St Giles Church, sort of almost like a cathedral status within the Welsh landscape. And it also has a stone next to it on the wall above the tomb that was replaced one presented to Yale University in the US. So a part of the church has gone to the US to sort of materialise that Yale link. So colonialism in different regards taking place here with the translation of stones and the deployment of stones. And this was the pub in question, and the point I make in my blog and my vlog is that the Eli Yale Wetherspoons pub was originally an ice rink, as a bed showroom for a long time. It's hardly an embedded historic part of the landscape, and rather than try to contend with Yale's tomb on consecrated ground, the BLM movement, I think, rightly haven't tried to push beyond the existing objection from local people to have this pub renamed. Now it still remains with that name, and it's and I think that was a very strategic, considered, and appropriate level of reaction and objection to a part of the historic landscape bearing Eli Yale's name. It doesn't mean that anyone's going to take down street names, remove statues. There's nothing else like that about Yale apart from his tomb and some rather benign, almost anodyne write-up on the Heritage website and in the guidebook for Erddig Hall by the National Trust. So there's a potential of not simply removing this pub, but of the opportunity here to invest in the landscape, new stories about Yale that pay essential attention to his slaving activities. And I think this is an opportunity, is what I'm getting at, rather than a threat to the historic landscape. But let's move on quickly and just talk about how this links to my interest, because this is my map of the borderlands and the two great linear earthworks, Offa's Dyke in yellow, in green Watts Dyke, the one that runs in front of Erddig House, as I talked about, and how this monument is both an ancient monument protected in large sections, but still under threat. Under different agricultural regimes, and even local landowners have been stopped by the police damaging a huge section near Chirk recently. It's a monument under threat, but a monument that bears his name. And we have to understand it not simply as a monument, but as part of the life history of the landscape. Indeed, Offa's Dyke has long defined Wales and the Welsh, and in the recent coronavirus differential lockdown restrictions in Wales and England, we've seen politicians and commentators repeatedly, again and again, referring from a Welsh perspective to England as east or beyond Offa's Dyke, and from an English perspective, likewise, of the Welsh as beyond Offa's Dyke, calls to, in jest, to refortify it. To stop the spread of the pandemic from east to west or west to east, depending on when you're talking about. So this is a monument that is still live in the consciousness of antagonisms between the Welsh and the English, and is deployed particularly by nationalists on both sides in public discourse in a very negative way. Little to do with Offa himself, little recognition or understanding, but like Hadrian's Wall in the nationalist discourses around Indy Ref and afterwards, even though it doesn't run anywhere near the modern English-Scottish border, Offa's Dyke, like Hadrian's Wall, has been deployed as a sort of political cudgel in recent discourses. And part of the landscape, and indeed it bears a host of monuments from the 19th century, and of course the waymarkers of the Offa's Dyke path. So the monument has become more than a monument. It's become a long distance walking trail that follows it for some distance, but also goes beyond it. We also have, the many waymarkers with the acorn symbol articulating its presence in the landscape, even for those who aren't archaeologically minded. The Offa's Dyke path takes in many other historic landmarks and nothing to do with Offa's Dyke, such as here the foundations of the Neo-Egyptian monument of the Jubilee Tower on Molvama. Visited here, this is in snow, but this is one of the iconic landmarks of the whole of northeast Wales. You can see into Cheshire, Lancashire, Denbighshire and Flintshire and Wrexham from this location. You can even see Snowdonia, of course, on a clear day. So this is a somehow Offa is suffused into the wider landscape beyond the line of the dyke itself. There are also places where you can visit Offa's Dyke, and it is part of heritage trails. So this is at Plaspower Woods near Nant Mill in Wrexham on the Clywedog, and there's a section of Offa's Dyke and a carved sculpture of Offa pointing. So Offa is also an early medieval or Anglo-Saxon king who is present in the landscape. And here's two views of the monument. And linked to other historic monuments. So there's Chirk Castle, for example, another National Trust property, and Chirk Castle has Offa's Dyke running through its grounds without really any heritage interpretation that it's there at all. So hundreds of thousands of visitors go to Chirk Castle and not even aware that, as well as the castle, the line of the earthen bank running down into the Ceiriog Valley and then up the other side runs right past the base of the castle. And I've just produced a piece of research in the Offa's Dyke Journal that actually reviews the evidence of place names associated with Offa's Dyke and Watts Dyke. So these are all on the left, the various house names, habitation names, residence names that demonstrate an association, a close spatial proximity with the dyke, from naming after Offa or the dyke, Offa's Cottage, Offa's Way, Tir Offa, Cum Offa. You have a lot of place names in villages and towns and farms along the line of the monument. And on the right, these are all the road names, street names named after Offa and the dyke, most of which are closely associated with the physical traces of the monument, although there are a few where the Offa's Dyke path goes, such as in Prestatyn, beyond the monument itself. Here's a photograph to show you some of those. There's even an Offa's Dyke brewery, and that is on the physical line, now destroyed, of Offa's Dyke running through the Shropshire village of Trevonnan. And I've mapped these out on some settlements. So here's Knighton, home to the Offa's Dyke Centre and the Offa's Dyke Path, commemorating the opening of the Offa's Dyke Trail in 1971. The green line is the line of the Offa's Dyke Path. The red line is the surviving sections of the monument. And within the settlement, part of its identity as the Trefyclawdd, the town on the dyke, is Offa. So Offa's View, Cum Offa, Caeclawdd, Glen Dyke. These are place residential names within the town. And also, it's not just market towns, but also post-industrial towns. So here at Johnstown in Wrexham, the dyke doesn't survive at all, but it runs under the main road south to Rwabon. And house names and street names, Forth Offa, Offa Street, Clowdd Offa, Bryn Offa, commemorate in the landscape Offa's Dyke and Offa by association, as well as a Watts Dyke Park in Mynydd Isa and various road names connecting Wat to Offa, because it's often confused with Offa's Dyke, and it historically has been. So Bod Offa, Bryn Offa, as well as Watts Dyke Road, that's in Llai, and Watts Road, and so on. Okay, so and here at Mynydd Isa you can see the line of surviving of Watts Dyke, and then street names, and Mynydd Isa primary school was formerly Wattsdyke Infant School, and Wattsdyke Park is there. So you can see how these linear monuments, where they survive, are a part of the landscape, a part of the fabric of the landscape. Where their paths run but they don't exist, they still suffuse into the landscape, and they are recorded where they've been destroyed by house names and business names. There's a few businesses I didn't go into, that also parks and public building names, but also street names. Now, my point would be that these namings and these historically problematic associations might be seen at a glance to be inappropriate or problematic. But what I found was actually not only are these monuments a distinctive factor of the borderland identity, but it's an identity that defies nationalisms, both English nationalisms and Welsh nationalisms, in associating a monument of an Anglo-Saxon king, or associated with Anglo-Saxon kings, Offa's and Wattsdyke, and connecting it to a story of borderland identity. So on both the Welsh and English side of the border, the modern border, these monuments are part of this borderland identity, and it's a potential. There's real potential here, as John G. Swogger in his comic has attempted to tap into for the Oswestry area in Shropshire, into the stories of these monuments, to not only engage new communities and new audiences about the past, but also the potential to engage them in nature conservation, in outdoor leisure activities, in understanding other aspects of the historic landscape. And so John and I are in the busy going to create. We're going to create a Wattsdyke, Wattsdyke, a Wrexham comic heritage trail, to pick up locations where you can see Wattsdyke associated with the Wrexham landscape, where it's in covered by houses, it's where it's in a park, where it's in fields, so that people can get a sense of where you can visit it. And my connection back, and this is part of ongoing research into frontiers and borderlands, but the connection back to my theme is that these problematic, seemingly at a glance awkward or outdated associations have a great potential for recontextualization. It's not about erasing them from the landscape, but of being aware and researching and thinking of new ways we can tell the stories. And that very much applies as much to Eli Yale as it does to King Offa, an Anglo-Saxon king of a kingdom of Mercia that failed to get past the 9th century, destroyed and by the Vikings, taken over by the West Saxons, part of the forging of England, you could say, but another level, a monument that sits ill with from a Welsh perspective, and there's a lot of dissonance with Offa from an English perspective, and yet there's a lot of potential for responsibly contextualising these stories and how they have a power in the landscape. And I suppose that's where I've got to with my thinking on this. Oh, and my final point, of course, is that I am co-editor of the Offa's Night Journal, and I've got a book coming out called The Public Archaeologies of Frontiers and Borderlands, which is co-edited with Kieran Gleave and Pauline Clark, that addresses some of these issues of how we tell the stories of frontiers and borderlands in the modern world, and how do we critique and evaluate political appropriations and pop culture associations. So I hope you have a look at those as they come out in the next month or so.